Howdy everyone, my name is Sharfa. I'm a student researcher working with Professor Mustafa on this computational and structural design and analysis course. These first couple of videos are just going to be an intro into the software that we're going to be using. We understand that you might not have a CAD background or you might be unfamiliar with this 3D software. So this serves as a short, quick intro to kind of help you get familiar with it and help you download everything and get everything set up for you to follow this course. All of these course files, videos will always be available at this website, calab.net/structure. You'll be able to find the downloads for files that you may need. You can look through all of the videos again. And if there's any course notes or anything like that, you'll be able to find it all right here. The 3D software that we'll be using for this course is Rhino. And if you haven't already, go ahead and download this through their website, Rhino3D. You will need to buy it and it will be available here. Make sure you go through the students or faculty. You can get it for a little bit less than the full price. If you used Rhino in the past and you have an older version, you can upgrade over here for a little bit less than a full new install. When you open up Rhino, it'll look something like this. You'll have 4 of these viewports, and they each do a few different things. But let's go ahead and start in the perspective viewport. What I did there is just double click on perspective, and you're greeted with this, it kind of expands the view to only that viewport. Some of the basic keyboard functions that you'll need to navigate and move around in 3D is right click and left click. Right click and shift will help you pan around. Just holding down right click with no other keys will just let you move around the 3D view, and your left click will be used for selecting things, and the way you select things changes depending on if you drag from the top left or from the bottom right. I would strongly suggest that you just kind of look around for a little bit using the right mouse button, use the shift and right mouse button to kind of move around, get familiar with that, get comfortable. In Rhino, there's 2 different workflows, and you can choose what works best for you. One of the options is to simply look through these menu options, and yours might look a little bit different here, but notice the different tabs at the top, and look for this menu over here. Again, this might be in a different location, and you can arrange this all a little bit later if you'd like to. We're going to start off with a simple box. So you can see here, there's a little box icon. You can go ahead and click that, and click in the center of your viewport, right where these red and green lines meet. So you're just going to click there, and you can start dragging out. So you can see that it starts drawing a rectangle, and we're just going to click over here, and then you can see that it starts to go up, and you're just going to click again. So now you have a simple 3D box, and this is one way you'd be able to make box. One of the other ways is just by typing in box. You can just start typing anywhere on your keyboard, and you can see that it opens up the same menu, and you're able to go ahead and do the same thing there. So at the bottom of the screen, you have grid snap, ortho, planar, O-snap, and gumball Z-plane. Make sure you have similar ones selected here. Ones that you might change quite frequently is the grid snap option. So I can explain what that does right here. You can see that there's a pretty big grid plane over here. If you try to place any sort of component, you can see that it snaps to each of these grid points. And sometimes that's very useful, but if you say you wanted to get kind of a finer detail, you wanted kind of like somewhere in between here or somewhere in between these squares, then you can just go ahead and click that and it'll turn it off, and you're kind of just able to select it and drop it in anywhere that you want to. Some of the other settings that you might want to change initially are these O-snap options over here. If you keep them similar to this, you'll have a good time. This just allows you to kind of select the middle of faces and just makes your life a little bit easier. I want to talk about some lines and the different types of lines that you can use. If you go ahead and click over here, this is a polyline. So you're just able to click as many times as you want to, and you're able to make a shape. And if you notice that if I close the shape, the command kind of closes out. When you click on this curve again, you can see that it says it's a closed curve. This is something that's really important, especially when you start extruding these curves. You want to always make sure that they're closed. Here's an example of if a curve is not closed and you select it, it'll say it's an open curve over here. To cover a little bit about selection and selecting objects in Rhino, there's 2 different ways that work really well. One is dragging from the top left down, and basically what that selects is everything in that selection specifically. So if I draw another line here, and I just wanted to select this line, I'm just going to drag over here. And you can see that even though this curve was in that same selection, it didn't get selected. And that's because dragging from the top left down selects everything that's only within this selection rectangle. Now say you wanted to select both of these at the same time. What you're going to do is you're going to drag from the bottom right and up. Moving on to extruding a curve, what you're going to do is you're going to select your curve, and I'm going to type in extrude curve. Notice how it's CRV instead of CURVE. This is just a way that Rhino kind of shortens some of the names for commands. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you can see that I can start to extrude it up and visualize how that would look. One thing to note here are these settings and the command itself. You want to make sure that your output is set to surface. The direction we can kind of mess around with a little bit later. Both sides, this can be no for now, and then this one's really important, it has to be solid. After we set that, we can just kind of click anywhere here, and you can see that it's made a solid extrusion. And you can verify this by clicking on it, and it says one closed extrusion added to the selection. This is what happens when you extrude a curve that isn't closed. I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to try to do the same thing as last time. And I'm going to click over here. It's using this height as a reference, so I'm going to click over there. And you can see that it didn't make a solid shape. And when I click on it, it says it's one open extrusion. In most cases, working with this type of an extrusion isn't ideal, and it'll just make your life a lot harder. That's why before you extrude, always make sure that your curve is closed, so you can see that it says one open curve added to the selection. There's a few ways that you can close this curve. One, you can find where it is and kind of close it. And then you'll need to select both of those curves and type in join. And you can see that it says it joined two of those curves into one closed curve. Another option that's really helpful but only works about 80% of the time is just by selecting your open curve and typing in close curve, and it made this closed curve. Next is something that you'll be using quite often as well, and it's called isolate and lock. These are two separate commands, and what you can do is you can select an object that you have and you can type in isolate. What you can see is that it isolated this object, the other one disappeared from view. To bring the other object back, you can just type in show. Now say you want to work on this object, but you don't want it to move, or you don't want it to be messed with, and you just want it to stay the exact same. What you can type in is lock, and you can see that it turns grayed out a little bit. So now I can still put some lines on it and whatnot, but the shape won't let you select it, and you won't be able to modify this at all. You can unlock the object just by typing in unlock. Sometimes you have a lot of objects, and typing in show or unlock just unlocks everything. So this is kind of a unique trick where you can isolate your objects, and you can type in show selected, and it'll show you all the objects that are hidden currently, and you can just select the ones that you want to show up again. The same thing works for the lock command, where you have a bunch of objects that are locked, and you can just type in unlock selected, and it'll let you choose a few of the ones that you want to unlock rather than all of them at once. Next, let's talk about moving and copying some objects. What you can do is make sure that your gumball is set, and make sure it's turned on, so that what happens is whenever you click on an object, this gumball shows up, and you're able to drag these arrows wherever you want, and this helps you move the object. Here you can also notice that there's rotate, and you can start kind of manipulating these objects wherever you want. Something that you may want to try is rotating while holding shift, and you can see that it snaps to the nearest 90 degree. Let's say that you wanted to copy this object. You're just going to click on it, and you're going to type in copy, and you can kind of click on wherever you want to copy from, and here you can see that I'm making a few copies of it. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about some Boolean operations. Boolean operations are used to merge, delete, and even combine different objects together. So we're going to try Boolean union first. So we're going to type in Boolean union, and we're going to click on our first object and our second object. We're going to click enter, and you can see that these two are now union together. Next is Boolean difference. We're going to select the surface that you want material taken away from, so it's going to be this large one over here. And we're going to click enter or space, and we're going to choose the object that we want to take away from this larger surface, so we're going to click that one over there. We're also going to make sure that our delete input is set to yes, and our delete cutters is also set to yes. You can see that that object was taken away from it. There's also something called the Boolean split, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line here. I'm going to click on this line and I'm going to do extrude curve, and you can see that it's just like one flat surface that's being extruded up over here. I'm going to click on our surface, I'm going to move it down so it's slicing this larger object here. Then I'm going to type in Boolean split. I'm going to click on the surface that I want to split. I'm going to select the cutting surface, which is that one over there. And you can see that it made a cut, and I can move this away or I can delete it. So that covers a few of the basics when it comes to moving and kind of changing things in Rhino, manipulating objects, creating them. There's obviously a lot more, but hopefully this will help you follow along and understand what to do a little bit better.